The CW Twin Cities presents See What's Now, your entertainment news source.
Hey everybody, John Foss, CW Twin Cities. We are talking with Gabe Polsky about his film, In Search of Greatness. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So what brings you to the Twin Cities?
I am promoting my film In Search of Greatness, and I'm really excited to share my film, a documentary In Search of Greatness, through the eyes of the greatest athletes of all time, and kind of a look into the nature of greatness and the secrets of genius.
And you have an interesting background. So you were born in the Soviet Union, is that right?
No, I was actually born in St. Cloud, Minnesota.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
your parents are
my parents are
immigrants.
from the former Soviet Union, from Ukraine.
Okay.
And so I'm first generation.
So tell me a little bit about your childhood and just how and what growing up was like for you.
So, I mean, I grew up with parents that were different. They spoke Russian, and that was my first language. But then, gradually I assimilated, and we were always sort of that strange family in the neighborhood, eating different food and stuff like that. But I guess gradually I assimilated and just tried to be like everybody else in a way, and I kind of lost how to learn how to speak Russian. I had to relearn it again later in life. It's interesting. That's basically the gist of it. I played, competitive sports. I played, ice hockey, and very competitively. I ended up playing in college at Yale, and that's kind of where my passions.
Did you play multiple sports?
Yeah, I played everything. Basically, I love just everything from baseball to basketball, everything. Me and my friends would just play anything and everything. Yeah.
Where does filmmaking come in?
Filmmaking came in much later. It was actually around at the end of my senior year in college. I was a political science major. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I saw a lot of people going towards Wall Street, towards law school, all these things. But I was enticed by my roommate, who was improvisational comedian, and he was doing a lot of weird stuff, and I thought that looked like an interesting thing that I could get passionate about and be good at. I was always like a class clown growing up, and I think that might have to do with just sort of being creative and sort of being bored and ADD, and sort of storytelling is, I think, kind of interesting.
So since you've been a filmmaker, you've done multiple projects. The big one that sticks out that a lot of people know is Red Army, which has 94% on Rotten Tomatoes. Was very successful. Tell us about your career as a filmmaker.
So, I started off mainly, producing films. I'm, working my way up, but ultimately producing films, and I made a few, and one of them was nominated for an Emmy. And basically, at a certain point, producing has its limitations, and you can't get as hands-on and make creative decisions, and felt like it would be more interesting to try directing, see what I could do. And so I made a film with my brother called The Motel Life, which is an independent drama with Emile Hirsch, Dakota Fanning, very kind of tender film about brothers. And that's where I started directing, and then ultimately I decided to go off on my own and direct a documentary called Red Army, and kind of combining my family's past and my interest in ice hockey, and telling an epic story of a transformation of Soviet Union and Russia, and kind of what this country is all about, and really personal story about the captain of the greatest sports dynasty in history.
I was born in Soviet Union. It was pretty rough. No running water, no toilets. We got the fish only one day a week. It was Thursday. I was a happy kid. I play game, play hockey.
Being an American, what kind of feedback did you get making a film about the Soviet hockey team? Was it positive, negative? It was definitely unique, because obviously most of the films that are made around here are going to be about American sports teams like Miracle and stuff like that. So what was the feedback?
Yeah, I mean, I think people are essentially tired of they love the story of the Miracle on Ice, and we relive it over and over, but I think sort of having a fresh perspective from the other side, and like a story told in a unique, I think, kind of epic, beautiful way. People appreciated that, and anyone, the most random people have seen this movie and really appreciated, enjoyed that it was different, and they got to see a different perspective. So yeah, I mean, now the climate has changed a little bit with Russia and America, and so if it came out now, maybe it would be a different response. But I think when people see a great film, it's sort of self-evident. You don't, but things are really testy right now. So.
Mm-hmm. And your new film, In Search of Greatness, why this film?
This film, is a really personal film. It's my most personal film that I've made because it's about ideas that I've been thinking about my whole life, and what is greatness? What are the secrets that the greatest athletes of all time have? And sort of, how do they think? What were their lives like? How are their parents? What are their sort of physical limitations? How were they coached? All of these questions that I had, I sort of wanted answers to, and more than that, when I was a kid, I always felt that the essence of sport was creativity. It was going to the stadium and watching something magical, something you've never seen before. That was just, you turn to your friend and say, "Did you just see that? That was insane." If we take that sports as creative at its very essence, then I was always frustrated with why coaches and parents were never encouraging of creativity in youth sports. It didn't make any sense to me. If that's the essence of greatness, then how come we don't get taught creativity? It's the most important thing.
All inventive and creative people, they're not hung up on fixed definition of what any form of life or reality may be.
People who achieve real greatness don't fit the formula at all. In fact, they break the mold. The great players have a personality that shines through in their technique and how they apply it in their sense of artistry. What they're doing isn't just taking part in a game, it's also a performance.
I didn't have that strength and size. Part of my creativity was survival.
A lot of creative work comes out of a flash of insight, but then you need the skills and the hard graft to make it work.
We've lost our creativity and imagination. It's so structured now.
And now, as youth sports becomes more and more competitive and a lot of pressure to specialize at an early age, the messages of this movie, the ideas that unstructured play, freedom and self-expression are sort of becoming less and less important, and as a result, I think sports in general is becoming less and less interesting, and I think that our society is becoming less and less healthy because we're not letting kids just use their imagination and sort of develop those skill sets and sort of just have fun, because having fun at its core is the essence of greatness.
So was your goal to look at elite athletes and see if there was something that they all had in common to have that outcome?
Yeah, the goal was definitely to see what kind of patterns the greatest athletes of all time had, and whether there was some correlation between all of them, and I think there are, but I think everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses, and what is great in one era or one sport is not going to be what's great now or in the future. It's always changing. No one can ever repeat or should repeat what somebody else was doing, because they had their own greatness at their own time with their own person. And so the next great is going to be somebody who reinvents their sport in a different way.
And some of the people you talked to were Wayne Gretzky, Jerry Rice,
Pelé.
Yeah. The people that you chose, why did you choose those individuals?
Well, the athletes I chose were ones that were inspiring to me, and were sort of unarguably the greatest of all time in their sport. There's no real argument. And I wanted that to kind of be somewhat of a rule in the film. And then others that I feature in the film, like Muhammad Ali, Serena Williams, Michael Jordan, also kind of undeniably the greatest of all time, But, that might change in the future.
First of all, how did you get these athletes to be a part of the film? And were there athletes that you wanted that you couldn't get?
There were definitely athletes that I sort of pursued that basically were denied wanting to be a part of this. One was Michael Jordan, for instance. I really fought hard, but couldn't get him. And then Serena Williams, I was unable to get. Willie Mays and a couple other women too. So, you know, with filmmaking, you gotta, as with anything in life, you gotta improvise based on what you're given, you know, your limitations, and you have to do the best you can with those limitations. Oftentimes those limitations are actually really good for the film and help it.
Yeah, you definitely did a great job of still featuring them, even though they weren't being interviewed, like Michael Jordan's Hall of Fame speech, and then some old footage of Serena and Venus Williams and Tiger Woods when he was like 2. Was it hard to get clearance for that footage? Well,
what I tried to do with other sections and illustrating other athletes and their stories is really try to understand what is the essence of Michael Jordan. What in understanding him and sort of who he was as an athlete. Same thing with Serena Williams. And so I created these sequences that I thought illustrated the very essence of these people. And regarding the footage, basically, I had lawyers that had to clear the footage I had to use the footage in certain ways so that I could clear it.
You talked to Jerry Rice, Wayne Gretzky, Pelé. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
And
Pelé.
Okay. I always said Pele, but
I think it's Pelé.
Okay. Am I missing anybody?
No, those 3.
Okay. Was it intimidating to talk to elite athletes like that?
I mean, yeah, it was, because the pressure for me was, I'll never talk to these guys again. I've got let's say an hour on average with these guys, and I better get something interesting. You know, they're not my friends. They don't want to be my friend. I don't want to be their friends. I want to get the greatest interview.
Were you actually doing the interview?
Yeah, I did the interview.
And there's a lot of your voice in the film, right?
There's a bit, yeah.
And
so that was what was intimidating, was what can I get out of them? How can I, and how?
And you don't really get a second chance.
No.
It's like they give you an hour
or
so, and then it's like, if you think of something later, it doesn't matter. You're done.
Exactly. And I'll never get another interview.
So one of the themes that it seems to reoccur throughout the film is a lot of these athletes just having an unstructured background. And today, like you mentioned, everything's so structured. Would you say that's one of the common themes you found as far as creating the greatness in these people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that in order to achieve greatness, there has to be quite a bit of experimentation and failure. Okay, these athletes, in order to develop their superpowers, it doesn't just happen overnight. They're practicing, they're trying different things, they're using their imagination. What can I do with my limitations? And everyone I interviewed, everyone that I've studied, there has to be a lot of play and experimentation to find your superpower, and that's what it is. Here's the thing. In order to be a great athlete, in order to be a great musician, in order to be a great computer software programmer, there's a level of poetry in what you're doing. You cannot be great at what you're doing unless there's a sense of artistry in what you're doing. And it's those who bring the poetry to what they're doing that become great, and they become artists of what they're doing.
What would you say when you were on your quest for the search for greatness? What would you say? Did you come up with an answer to the film?
One important thing that this film kind of confirms is the idea that if you find what it is that is fun to you, that it allows you to have the most amount of fun, I think there's a great chance you're going to be great at it, because it's not work anymore. It becomes a joy, and you could become obsessed in that joy. So that's very important, you know.
And it can definitely be applicable to other parts of people's lives, outside of sports. What would you say you will take from this to apply to your career and your life in general?
There's so many kind of lessons in the film, you know, so it's hard to point to one particular thing, but if anything, I think it kind of confirms what I've been thinking about all along. And I had no idea whether the greatest athletes of all time, whether they also felt that way, that how important creativity is and play and all this stuff. Did they really think that, or was it some other thing, you know? And it's sort of, I allow this, these ideas to almost get off my chest now, because they've been almost confirmed and expressed, and I can kind of feel good about my instincts all along, and the idea that, you know, basically, should I be compromising my creative vision, or should I just stick with what I think is right, you know? And I think these athletes, they didn't really compromise who they were and what they believed in. They were able to stick with it and express that, and so that's important to understand.
And for your career, what do you see in the future? Will you continue doing sports documentaries, or do you want to branch out and try other things? I know you've done other things in the past, but do you see more sports documentaries, or what's next?
Well, I am finishing one other documentary that's related to sports. I'm not going to get into that, but I think after that, I'd like to, I think my talent, you know, can go beyond sport, and I'm not interested in doing sports anymore, because I've already done that, and I've done it well, and I think I've got more to express, more interesting, other ideas, you know, other things, other worlds, you know.
Mm-hmm. What about advice for filmmakers? What would you say, what would you tell them to do if they have a passion in it to get to where you are?
There will be a lot of people that try and get in the way of your sort of dreams or success, and just kind of, you have to really kind of not worry about them. Just trust your gut and take risks and do what you want to do, and at least at the end of the day you can say, oh well, you know, I gave it my best. If it works out, great, but at least you will never look back and say, I wish I should have done this, I should have done that. Just, you tried, and you went for it, and so we should all do that.
Okay. One gossip question that you're going to kill me about.
Yeah.
One thing that kept coming up when doing research about you, and this is a few years ago, is rumors about a relationship with Jennifer Lawrence. Is there any truth to that?
No. Well, she's a good friend of mine, and my wife is, you know, her best friend. That whole rumor was because I was actually dating her best friend, and that's how it started. And basically, she's a great person, and my wife's even better. That's all that.
Very cool.
That was just all a rumor, fake stuff.
For sure. And where can we learn more about you and about this film?
So yeah, the website is called InSearchOfGreatness.com, and the movie's called In Search of Greatness, and it's in theaters nationwide on November 2nd. And basically, it's a movie that basically there's a lot to talk about afterwards, so that's why it's great if people come in groups and basically have fun and talk about it afterwards.
All right, well, Gabe Polsky, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
And Twin Cities, make sure you check out In Search of Greatness in theaters November 2nd.